think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Money Level Show, where we think, act, and prosper. And today I got a special guest. He is a well-known author. He has been an investor for a long time, and he's very humble. We talked about humility on our last episode, and right now I want to welcome Jim Rogers back to the show. So Jim, we actually talked about humility a little while ago in investing, because you yourself have experienced booms and busts. You've lost money, you've made money. Right now I feel like there's a lot of euphoria. Everybody thinks AMC and GameStop is going to the moon. Everybody believes Bitcoin is going to hit $1 million. What's your take on that?
Well, Daryl, it's not my first time I've seen this movie. I know how it's going to end. It is ending the same way it always does. Towards the end of any long bull market, you have a lot of new people come in. They get very excited. They tell their friends it's very easy and you can make so much money and it's so much fun. And they all have a wonderful time and they run around and investing new things. They get very excited about new things and they tell stories about new things. And the new things go to crazy prices and eventually it all collapses. But in the meantime, as I say, I've seen this movie before. It can go on for a while. I would just caution people to be very careful, be sure they know what they're doing, because every time we've had a long bull market, it's come to an end this way. You have euphoria, excitement, absurdity, mania, and it's happening again. I'm not selling, by the way. I'm not selling because, and I'm not very good at market timing, Daryl, but I will say I'm not selling because it hasn't spread to the whole market yet. It is spreading. Things like Apple and Samsung and Tencent never go down. So it's spreading, but it's not for the whole market yet. So I'm not selling yet.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to hear. I've actually been doing the same thing. I've been kind of hedging some positions with holding on to some inflation protected securities and just okay, how can I have cash on hands, for when it happens, but I'm also actively investing, so I'm just trying to stay prepared and protected and defensive and all of that. So you experienced the .com bubble, and from what I heard, and I was a kid during that time, but from what I heard was that people could get in, everyone could buy any stocks. What was it, pets.com and all type of stuff. These stocks are just going up, just straight up, like not even realistic. And what was it like during that time? Would you say this is similar, or would you say that this isn't to that level yet?
Well, as I said to you before, it always happens after markets been going up for a while. This is similar, but it's not yet as crazy as that was. It happened in the late 60s. It happened in the 20s. It's happened in other countries. As I say, it's not my first rodeo. I know how it happened. I've seen it many, many, many times, and I've read about it in many times. Back in those days, Dal, it was crazy, widespread. If you walk down the street in New York, all the shops had television sets on so people could watch the market. It was insane. If you went to the dentist, all the receptionists wanted to do was talk about stocks. I mean, it was everywhere. It's getting everywhere now. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in Asia. It's happening in America. But it's not completely everywhere yet, because not all stocks in America are going through the roof yet.
Okay. So it's safe to say Jim Rogers is bullish at this moment.
Well, I'm not selling. I am not selling. I am still buying. I'm not buying in the U.S. I'm trying to buy in some other countries, but I'm not selling yet. And I'm sure I will be too late, Daryl. My timing is usually bad. Sometimes I get it right, but don't rely on me for market timing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not in the business of picking tops and bottoms, but I've been able to kind of make some plays and speculate a little bit, after reading The Intelligent Investor. Like, I keep my speculations totally different than my investments, my long-term investments or whatnot. But I've been making sure that I'm not trying to pick the top or bottom, being comfortable with any profits and things like that. But I definitely understand that. So we've seen inflation picking up. We've seen numbers, the CPI starting to reflect some degree of inflation here in the U.S. I'm not sure how things are over in Singapore, but how do you think this plays out? And from when I was watching, I think I actually watched your interview with George Gammon, and he asked you about inflation in the 70s. So did you see any similarities or things that you're kind of looking out for in regards to inflation? I mean, obviously you're in a different country, but how do you see this playing out for people in the U.S.?
It's going to wind up the same way everywhere. Prices are already starting to go up. It doesn't matter whether it's entertainment or education or go to the dentist, anything, prices are going up. Food, go to a restaurant, go to the supermarket, and you will see prices are going up. That will continue. They won't go up every day, every week. There will be times when things calm down. But when you have so much money printing, as we've had recently, it has always led to higher inflation. Maybe it won't this time. In Washington, they say, don't worry, we have things under control. If you believe them, you won't worry, and you won't worry about inflation or protecting yourself. I continue to protect myself from inflation.
Yeah, I've seen kind of doing some research on inflation and how they fought it in the 80s when Paul Volcker raised interest rates. Back then, they didn't have as much debt. So how does raising the interest rates affect how much level of debt we have now? Because it seems like, we're getting stimulus after stimulus. We're getting more infrastructure packages trying to pass and things like that. And so the debt seems like it's skyrocketing. We've seen the Fed's balance sheet go up. Do the Fed have any tools? I mean, I don't know if they can raise rates or what. What's kind of your take on that?
Well, America is the largest debtor nation in world history. No nation has ever been this deep in debt. And if or when interest rates go higher, many people are going to go. I mean, Connecticut is bankrupt. Illinois is bankrupt. Many places are actually bankrupt now. And when interest rates go higher, it's going to put them out of business. I don't like saying any of this, Daryl. I'm an American like you, but I have to face facts. And the U.S. government, when interest rates go higher, its interest rate is going to absolutely go through the roof. And it's going to affect all of us, whether we're homeowners or whatever we are. We buy a car, anything, it's going to have an effect on us. The way it has always worked is it starts slow, and some people start to notice it, but others don't. But they think it's temporary. And the government always says, don't worry, it's temporary. We have things under, but eventually, what happened in the 70s, you mentioned Paul Volcker, he was the head of the central bank. It was really serious everywhere, and especially in the US. And for whatever reason, Jimmy Carter, who was the president at the time, said to Paul Volcker, you do whatever you have to do. I will be behind you. I will protect you. You do whatever you have to do. Now, Volcker knew what he had to do. Interest rates were over 20%. That's not a typo. Volcker took interest rates higher and higher and higher. And of course, it crushed the economy. But when the economy was crushed, the price of everything, oil, copper, everything, the prices came down, and we didn't have inflation for a while again.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
definitely.
One thing, right now, we don't have anybody. I don't know if Jimmy Carter was smart, but he was smart enough to say to Volcker, you do whatever you have to do. And Volcker knew what he had to do. Now, Biden is certainly not that smart. The head of the central bank in America is certainly not as smart as Paul Volcker was. So who knows what these guys will do? They're still telling us, don't worry, it's not happening.
Yeah. I think it was Milton Friedman said nothing's more permanent than a temporary government program. And so they keep saying it's temporary. So I'm kind of just betting on the opposite right now. So how high do you see like energy prices going? I've been deep into uranium and kind of studying that market, and then we've seen oil going back up. I mean, oil's been demonized and things like that, and so it seems like we're kind of seeing. I don't know if it's some people tie it to conspiracy or whatever, but we're seeing like oil refinery fires. We're seeing the Suez Canal get blocked. We're seeing the pipeline get hacked. Like, it's just a lot of stuff going on. And I don't know if we're just hearing about this because of the inflation talk or what. What's kind of your take on that?
Well, who's the conspiracy? Who's doing it, Daryl? Is it you?
I think it was a conspiracy that Hillary Clinton was driving the Suez Canal, the boat in the Suez Canal. So yeah, it goes that far out there, but yeah.
I forgot about Hillary. I guess she's probably doing everything that's going wrong. Well, as I said before, it starts small and people don't notice it at first, but it keeps accumulating. That's the way it always works. It always has anyway. And whether it's a conspiracy or not, basically the conspiracy is the central banks all over the world are printing huge amounts of money because they think it'll help them keep their job. Daryl, they don't care about you and me and our kids. They care about their jobs. And they think the way to keep the job is to print a lot of money, get the economy strong, and then they will keep their job. But what will happen is, and it's already happening, prices start going up, and then they accumulate because when the guy goes home and he and his wife realize, oh my gosh, we can't go out to eat anymore, and then they go to the grocery store and prices there are higher too, they go and say, we have to have a raise. And then people ask for more money, they get more money, and it just accumulates and builds up. So I said, it doesn't happen every week or every month, but it's always happened this way. And it's happening again. The virus, of course, means that there are shortages developing even more. I mean, it's hard to open a coal mine now because you can't get anybody to work. But copper is making all-time highs. And that's partly because nobody's opened any copper mines for a long time and is not opening copper mines, but also because it looks like we're going to have electric vehicles. Well, electric vehicles use many times more copper than regular vehicles. So you put all these things together, you have higher and higher prices. And in the end, interest rates go very high no matter what the central bank tries to do, because the market says, wait a minute, Mr. Central Bank, we've heard this before. We know you're lying. We know you're incompetent. We want higher interest rates. And they get them. The market drives interest rates higher eventually.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Darryl, when the market gets in control and the central banks lose control, that's when things get really, really bad.
So there's a lot of talk about the central bank digital currencies. I have kind of a perspective on it in regards to how much privacy we actually have, when you have an account with the Federal Reserve, which they passed Senate bill, I think it was 3571 back in March of last year, about the digital currency and digital wallets. And right now, we can deal in cash, we can deal in cash and the government doesn't have to know about it. And, my concern with the central bank digital currencies is that, privacy, things of that nature. And they've talked about banning cash for a long time. People have talked about that for a while. How do you think that plays out? How do you think that's going to affect people?
Well, we're definitely going to have computer money, we'll call it what you will. In China already, you cannot take a taxi with money. You cannot buy an ice cream with money. You have to show them, where is my computer? You have to show them your computer money. And other countries are working on, America's working on it. Nearly every country is working on it. They want it partly because it's cheaper. We don't have to print the stuff and transport the stuff and guard the stuff. So they want it. But you hit the nail on the head now. Then they know everything you do. And they love that. They will call you up and say, Daryl, you've been drinking too much coffee this month. Cut down on your coffee. They will know everything you do. And they love that. Now, I hate it, and apparently you do too. But it's coming, whether we like it or not. And all money is going to be computer money.
Yep. And that's kind of like why I stress the importance to my viewers about having money out of the main financial system, gold, silver, having that, I mean, anything that's not tied to your social security number. Some people, I invest in cryptocurrencies. I buy them, because they're, I guess, out of the financial system. But, obviously people have different perspectives on that. But for me, I just try to protect myself the best way possible. I'm more of a physical gold and silver. I collect, and I also just, stack, as well. So I just try to stress that importance to having something out of the financial system, because the dollar's losing value. Anything tied to your social security number, people can come after and stuff like that. So that's kind of one of the things that I stress the importance of, especially when we have the digital currencies coming and stuff. So we've seen gold and silver kind of make a bounce. We've seen it kind of grinded down for a while since last August, and now we're seeing it start to bounce. What do you think is happening there? Do you think that people are kind of getting on the, obviously it could be a mix of a lot of things, but do you think people are kind of starting to see like the inflation thing? Do you think people are starting to see that, about the digital currencies that the central banks are developing? What are you seeing behind this bounce, and kind of the sentiment of gold and silver and people run into that now?
Well, that's the way markets work. They go up a lot, then they have a correction. Sometimes a correction can last for months or weeks or years even, depending on what we're talking about. Silver and gold both went up a lot for a couple of years. Now they're having what I consider a normal correction. I'm not buying yet. I'm sure I'll get my timing wrong again, but I will be buying more before this is over. Whether I buy more lower or higher, I don't know, but I will certainly buy more, because before this is over, Daryl, when things get really bad, people have always tried to protect themselves with gold and silver, and they will again.
Yeah, it sounds like just throughout history, times of war, inflation, hyperinflation, people run to the precious metals for sure. Do you have any political or economic concerns for the younger generations that are coming up? Like for me, I think about my kids. My daughter's 3, my son is 11, and so and I know you have some young daughters as well. What are some of your political / economic concerns, for their future?
Well, Daryl, it's not a good time to be a young American, because my daughters, your children, are inheriting gigantic problems. 100 years ago, in the 1920s, England was the richest, most powerful country in the world. There was no number 2 even in those times. They were so much on top. But they started spending huge amounts of money, went deep in debt, and 50 years later, they were bankrupt. Literally, the IMF had to bail out the richest country, what had been the richest, most powerful country in the world. It's always happened. Always, whoever's been on number 1 starts making mistakes, and then they suffer and pay for it. And that's what's happening again. It's good to be old. Old people like me get the benefit. They're spending all this money. Well, it's helping me. It's not going to be good for your kids. It's not going to be good for you, much less your kids or my kids. I've seen it happen many times. I'll just read some history. You'll see whenever countries do things like this, eventually somebody has to pay the price. And usually it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I've been kind of diving deep into like the job market here too, and just seeing like some of the charts that show that wages haven't increased since the late 70s. It's been relatively flat, adjusted for inflation. And I'm kind of wondering, I kind of did a video on this where I talked about, is it, people want leisure more than work, which I think that's a big component of it. Like if I could, sit on my butt and, get a check, I would do that for sure, and spend time with my family, do things I enjoy. But I do think another component of it is that, the wages haven't increased. We're seeing the cost of living go higher. We're seeing healthcare, all these things just getting more and more expensive. I mean, people are having to, 2 to 3 people are having to work and make incomes in order to take care of, the rent and things like that. So I've been kind of seeing those things, and I'm starting to see like there's a lot of concerns about retirement as well, in the sense of I think the average person are saying that they need about 1.4 million for retirement, and they're really not getting that in pensions. They're really not getting that in 401ks, and so it's going to be interesting just to see how all this plays out.
Well, as I said, Daryl, it's not my first rodeo. It's happened before. Read, you'll find out. There are going to be hard times. Many people are going to suffer. If the currency gets weaker, and as you pointed out before, it's been going down for a long time, it's going to be harder and harder. And they're going to be in more and more bankruptcies. I mean, America is no country in the history of the world, Al, has ever been as deep in debt as we are, as the U.S. is. That never has a good ending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and just one last question. I mean, I appreciate your time. I'm sure my viewers do too. Have you changed your mind on Bitcoin? I just want to know. I've seen you talk about it a few times, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
I said to you before that all money is going to be on the computer. It already is in China. Some countries, more and more countries are doing it. So that's the wave of the future. But in my view, it's going to be government money. If you want to trade the cryptocurrencies and you're good, I know people who trade them and they make a lot of money. They're good traders. I'm not. I don't want to be a good trader. I have other things to do. Trading is hard work. It takes time and energy. My view is that if some of them become, and by the way, now you probably know there are thousands of them now. Hundreds have already disappeared. I mean, several hundred of them have already gone to zero and disappeared. And now there are thousands of them. My view is, if they become successful as money, as currency, and that's what the advocates say, oh, we're going to be the new money. My view is, if that happens, the governments, especially the US, are going to say it's illegal. It's already happening in China. It's already happening in India, the 2 largest countries in the world. It's becoming illegal because the US government, it's our government, so we know it, is not going to say, okay, money is now on the computer and this is now US money. The government's not going to say, but if you want to use something else, use something else if you want to. You don't have to use our money. That's not the way Washington thinks. It's not the way US politicians and bureaucrats think. So my view is they would just make it illegal. Now, they can do it. People said, oh, they can't do it because Bitcoin is secret, etc. We have already found recently that the government can track you down and will track you down, whether we like it or not. As I said before, I don't like any of that. But the government has, the people who hacked the pipeline and got a ransom, the government tracked them down, getting the money back. The government has power that I don't like, that we don't like, but mainly, Daryl, they've got guns. And they make the laws. And if they say it's illegal, some people will say, I don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not going to go around breaking a law where I can get caught. I'm not going to break any law, but certainly not one where I could easily get caught. So my view, it will be illegal eventually. But if you can trade it and make money at it, do it. I think there are better ways to protect yourself from what's happening, from inflation and from the future. You mentioned gold and silver. I would also mention commodities. It's easy to buy commodities now. And if we have inflation, that means prices go up. Well, if prices go up, that's cotton, that's wheat, that's copper, that's oil. The prices that go up are the commodities, and if you own them, you can protect yourself and make a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you're good at trading cryptocurrencies, don't listen to me. Do it. Just be careful. They may come in and take it away from you someday.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't allocate a whole lot of my portfolio to. It's things that I'm learning about, and I do think that there's some usefulness to it. I have a friend in the Philippines, and it was just so easy just to send my friend some Bitcoin, versus like trying to Western Union it, or things like that, or mail it. So it definitely has some usefulness to it. But I do agree that the government loves their power. I don't believe that they're going to give up that power. And we'll see how this all plays out. So, yeah.
I told you how I think it's going to play out. I wish we could take some of the power away from governments, but they've got the guns.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on that note, Jim, I appreciate you for sharing your time with us today, and appreciate you for coming on the show. I know we had a good interview last time, and I just want to thank you for taking the time out to talk to me and my viewers.
It's my pleasure, Daryl. Say hello to your kids. Be careful with your kids. Teach your kids about money.
Yes. That's something that we're actively doing. So thank you, Jim.